All right, we need to talk. We need to talk about why Season 9 potentially has been one of the worst changes that Overwatch has ever seen and has done irreplaceable, irreversible damage to the gameplay of Overwatch. Now, how has that been done? Why did the Season 9 changes initially come through? That's everything we're going to be talking about. Now, there's going to be some things that I might not remember off memory, so just please be sure to correct me because I don't have, all the time in the world anymore since I'm doing multiple jobs now. Now, with that being said, let's get into the video. So, starting off, season nine's initial goal was interesting. There's no denying it. And initially, when season 9 came out as well, I'm not going to lie, I even made a video on it. So, I don't walk back on what I said. I stay true to the things that I said. At the time when initially season 9 came out, it was actually fun. Now, before we dig deeper into it, well, what was the purpose of season 9? The season 9 took a lot of chances with the game in order to shake it up. Number one was the fact that the HP pool saw an increase. Most squishies went up to 250 HP, if not all of them, I think. Projectile sizes saw an increase. We saw the DPS passive. I believe this was the first time the DPS passive came in, this unique one, which was like, healing will be cut down by 20%. They had not necessarily balanced the game around the different breakpoints and interactions just yet. So the game itself was looking to be very fresh and enjoyable. Now, when I popped into season 9 initially and I played it, I enjoyed it a lot. I even dropped my review on it like all the way back then, that I said, hey, you know what, like if this might be the future, yes, there's some small issues with it, but I think the way the game is playing right now encompasses what the game was always trying to be, which was this chaotic mess of people running all over the place, trying to run different comps, running each other over, big pop-off moments. All of that felt like it was happening. And the reason it was happening was you can easily understand why it was happening, because at the time, the 20% healing reduction passive was a pretty damn big deal, and supports didn't have that much agency over the entire gameplay loop of everybody else. So impact from tank POV and DPS POV was actually it was a thing. Like back in season 8, we were complaining that the DPS role just felt like it had no impact anymore. And then like we got the initial 20% heal reduction changes, and we felt like, oh my god, DPS actually has an impact again. And it was enjoyable. There was actually a lot of hero variety and comp variety as well, because people were trying to figure out the game again. And I think initially it was pretty damn fun and healthy. Now I remember, because from season 9 all the way till season 11, before the mid-season patch for season 11, which was the Power Rangers Kamen Rider season, or Kaiju Watch, if you guys remember, I was enjoying the game a lot, and I said that, this is actually, like, the game is actually fine right now. There's a very few minor things they need to iron out, but it was like in a place where, I enjoyed grinding it. So I was never opposed to the idea of season 9 as a whole, but there were some small problems that were popping up. Number one, certain characters were being adjusted for the breakpoints over time, but other characters were not being adjusted. Now, I know I don't like using Genji as an example all the time, but there's no denying that Genji didn't see a breakpoint change. Neither did some other characters. In fact, some other characters saw a breakpoint interaction decrease. Now, what do I mean by that is some characters lost their damage. For example, Tracer started to see her damage numbers being messed around with for the first time ever, like Reinhardt saw his numbers going up and down. It was weird, because like they weren't sure necessarily what they wanted to do in the season 9. It was like they wanted to commit to the changes, but at the same time they wanted to maintain the new feeling that was in the game, that okay, well, things like there's a little bit more response time. Now, I'm not going to lie, you could argue that this is where like the initial changes that came through was from a perspective that they wanted to make the game easier, allowing there to be more health pool, like more HP bar, or just more hit points, or whatever you want to call it. Allows for more time to react for the average player. It allows them more chances to turn around, do something about what's going on. You, as the person dealing the damage, have to do a little bit more than usual. And from a psychological perspective, it's not a good feeling. Like, but back then it was in a spot, because healing was dramatically impacted by the DPS heal passive reduction. It didn't feel that bad. Like, I remember this much because I did multiple videos on this topic where I said, oh, actually, I'm not that opposed to this. Like, I know support had to kind of take the hit a little bit, but like we could improve support from a different direction. Now, where did things go wrong? Well, Overwatch team got a bit too excited, and they got a bit too carried away in their next philosophy shift for, tanks. And that was when we entered season 11 and we got the Kaiju Watch season. Now, What was the Kaiju War season, in case you forgot, in case you missed it? This was where a handful, pretty much the entire tank roster, saw so much power increase. The new armor, the new passives, the new, like, tanks got their breakpoints back. It was ridiculous because it was kind of like, wait, I thought we did the season 9 changes because we wanted to find a way to nerf burst damage and burst healing, but now we're kind of dropping that gimmick, we're dropping that idea for tanks, so tanks get their numbers back. Progressively, on the other side of the road, you had supports who were progressively getting buffed up over time. Granted, it wasn't as fast and dramatic as tanks did, but you definitely had supports who were getting buffed up progressively over time. And what was happening was, in, like, again, like going on forward from season 11 to now, you also saw the DPS heal passive get reduced to about 15%. Tanks saw it go down to about 10%. So DPS as a role started to go back to that same problem where the role just started to feel useless again. And what we mean by that is not like, oh, you can't play DPS. It felt like every time you play DPS, you had to do so much more than the other roles who had agency and impact in the game more than everybody else, because of either the sheer power of their utility, they could stay alive longer than you, their abilities are stronger than yours. DPS just feels like a role that the more it ages, the more it's just like aging worse. It's aging like milk, while support and tank are aging like wine, because you see that there's a little bit more attention being given in the way support and tank is being handled rather than the way DPS is being handled. There were some really awkward nerfs and changes that happened here and there. For example, we saw the projectile changes, you know, in the way that they wanted to change it for hit scan and projectile heroes. It was horrible, the hitbox changes for the weapons. Then you saw Junkrat getting nerfs in the very wrong area, even though they buffed his spam potential, but then they nerfed his dual potential, combo potential, which makes no sense. Mei pretty much lost her entire hero identity. Pharah, you know, saw it was a little bit here and there. One season she was oppressive, the other season she suddenly dropped off. You know, Reaper, we've been begging. I was personally screaming into my mic for months that all you have to do for Reaper is not give him a rework, just tighten the spread and he'll become a viable hero. And lo and behold, they did that and Reaper became a viable hero. But heroes were seeing their breakpoint changes go all over the place. Now fast forward to where we are now, you have characters that are some of the most healthiest characters in Overwatch history. Winston, Tracer, who for the first time ever are, you know, I wouldn't say constantly, but on a certain basis are seeing breakpoint changes here and there. Somehow randomly we have to change Winston's numbers, we have to change Tracer's numbers. Well, what if we nerf Tracer's damage from 6, you know, DPS per pellet down to 5.5? Oh, well, we don't like 5.5, let's give Tracer a little bit more fall off range. Well, now let's make Tracer's spread tighten up, so, like, you know, she can basically take a little bit more distance and, like, legitimately snipe you from a certain distance. Like, one of the core aspects to what made Tracer such a skillful hero was positioning, but now we kind of stripped that from the character, because now you don't have to worry about positioning that much, because you have the tighter spread, you have the longer fall off. It just felt like more and more of these changes that were coming, they were making characters easier and easier. And the problem with Overwatch as it went on from the season 9 changes and the season 11 sudden philosophy shift, where they really wanted to double down to making the game easier, was skill was becoming less and less identifiable by the player base. It really was just becoming more and more about cooldown rotations, ultimate rotations, and less about actual neutral gameplay. I know people want to debate and argue that, well, no, that's not the case, but whenever you see what's going on in OWCS, whenever you see what's going on in your ranked games, there's very, like, at least in the DPS role, maybe supports and tanks have impacted neutral. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but at least when it comes to damage heroes, it really does kind of feel like, unless the damage heroes can, like, legitimately one-shot, looking at Widowmaker, looking at Sojourn, Hanzo is in a bit of a really weird spot. You know, Genji's actually very good right now, but that's a topic for a different day. The reason some of these characters can be so good or bad is because of their potential to do sudden burst damage that has high impact on the game. Now, again, the problem with Season 9 that I've had, and many people have noticed over time, is Blizzard didn't necessarily commit to the philosophy. Their idea was, well, we wanted to nerf burst damage and burst healing, but over time, we power crept support. I did a video covering how support has been power creeped, and that unless DPS gets power crept, we're going to be for a very rough time. Lo and behold, DPS is now having a heal reduction passive of 25%. 25%! Let that sink in. 25%. We have bounced around 20, 10, and 15% for different situations and different reasons throughout the different metas or on tanks or whatever the case might be. But now we are in a spot where heal reduction on DPS onto squishies is 25%. And, you know, if you genuinely want to have a conversation as to why they have to keep doing this, the harsh reality behind all of this, and I don't like saying it like this, but this is the harsh reality, is the support role has just never been justifiably nerfed. Specifically, AoE healing and sustainability abilities need to be nerfed in order for the game to feel healthy and fun to play. But what they have tried to do is repeatedly blanket nerf it one way or the other, whether it's come down to, well, let's let DPS, reduce the healing if they like shoot somebody, etc., etc. Like, the list goes on. Like, they've tried to go around it rather than directly address it. And I think it has done more damage to the game than not. Now, coming to it from a psychological perspective, I've toned down a lot of how much Overwatch I've played recently, and I've been playing a lot of other games. I've been learning a lot of other games. I've been playing League of Legends. I've been around for about 2-3 different metas now. I've been, I played a little bit of Valorant here and there. I learned, to some extent, like Fortnite. I've been learning a lot of different games here and there because I wanted to kind of see, well, what does the competitive gameplay look like in other games? What makes it enjoyable? What doesn't make it enjoyable? All the funny memes about certain games aside, I did want to see that, well, these are competitive games that are pretty damn popular and are, out there. So what makes them so fun? So I think my experience with League was the best. When I started playing League, I was playing around the time where a lot of, there was a lot of agency and power in the game given to the mid and ADC lane. And then, just like as I was getting used to that meta, we suddenly shifted to a meta where there was more emphasis put on tank items and tank characters. So I'm sure anybody who's played League knows the problem that League legitimately has, like a GOATS meta problem. And then about 2-3 months later, the devs basically nerfed the shit out of it because they were like, yeah, we're not dealing with this garbage. They had another problem again where they're experiencing that same issue again where the tank items and just sustainability is so strong. And you see when I see the complaints in the League community and sustainability issues, I legitimately just feel like I'm watching the Overwatch GOATS meta and problems happen again. Because essentially, from a psychological perspective, I've come to realize people don't like it when it takes too long for something to die. Nobody likes it. Even Marvel Rivals right now has a potential triple support problem. You can still deal with it. It's not like it's the end all be all. I've won against a lot of triple support comps, and I'm a high elo player with it. I'm playing in GM, okay, and I'm almost a Celestial in the near future. But that's besides the point. The point is nobody likes it when sustainability begins to take over the game, and sustainability really hurts, any type of PvP gameplay, because you're allowing for more windows where somebody who might have rightfully deserved to be punished has a window to react and outplay the other person. I don't think yes, there should be a window where this should be possible, where to a limited extent you can draw out a fight, but not so much to where you can completely turn around the agency for another player. That what then happens is you create an unbelievable amount of frustration in the other person, where they're doing 3 to 4 times as much while the other person does the bare minimum and gets more value to them. I think the easiest way that you can look at this is if you look at the state of the Moira currently and the matchup with Genji, where Genji has to do so much to try and take her down, while Moira gets all these little changes here and there to help with her dual ability and everything. Now, granted, I know Moira's win rate's not in the best spot yet, although there's a team right now in the OWCS showcasing that maybe we were all wrong about Moira, and I think they're actually onto something. But that, again, not the point of this video at the moment. I do watch a lot of competitive Overwatch still, contrary to popular belief. Really still enjoy competitive Overwatch, but I cannot stand the current way of playing it. And the reason I don't enjoy playing it as much is I feel like it takes too long for anything to happen. The fights are not as fast as they used to be. The HP, the health bars are too long. Some characters have gotten breakpoint changes, some characters didn't get breakpoint changes. It just really feels like from season to season, it feels like a pick and choose. And the same thing happens with the tank role. We pick and choose which tank is good, which tank is not. Hazard is the king of the jungle right now. Then a few patches ago it was Mauga, then Orisa, then who now, who there. It just feels like a massive gambled mess. It feels like it's all over the place. And then the worst part in it all is it feels solved. It doesn't necessarily create any new exciting gameplay. We all know what comps to play now. We all know what heroes to play and where. And all these changes, initially, while they were really good for the game, they just feel so boring now. It just feels like it draws out the game. It makes it stale. It doesn't make it necessarily enjoyable. Honestly, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with the Overwatch gameplay right now if we just reverted to 200 HP pool. I'm not lying. If we would go back to 200 HP pool, I would actually really enjoy and even legitimately grind the game again and try to go for GM again. But at the moment, with the 250, 225 HP pools here and there, all these random wacky messes happening with balance, I just can't see myself committing to Overwatch for more than 4 to 5 games. It just feels like such a chore. It just feels so awkward, like, especially like, I know I complain about supports and the problem with support, but I also don't like the direction of how they've dealt with some of the meta supports. Like, Juno feels like absolute garbage to play. She's still very strong, but trying to play her feels like you're being beaten in the face with a, like, a boxing glove. And it's just like, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. I think I might do a separate Juno video where, it was like, at least my personal opinion on Juno, I feel like I really want to give it, because I actually really enjoyed playing Juno. She's very simplistic and really enjoyable to play, but I really hate how her kit has been changed. So, anyways, everybody, that's just my opinion on the state of Season 9 changes and why, in my opinion, they ruined Overwatch. It's really just thrown the game all over the place, coming to a conclusion. And honestly, I could talk about it for about an hour, and I can break down each individual hero. Like, seriously, I could spend like 30 minutes talking about why, like, all of a sudden when they just randomly decide to giga buff D.Va and now she can just insta delete squishies, like how that was terrible. Like, there's so many heroes that you can kind of isolate and talk about why Season 9, or at least post Kaiju Watch. I think post Kaiju Watch is where things got worse. Like Season 11, like post Season 11, things just got so bad. So TLDR is like, initially good idea, but they didn't stick to the philosophy. They kind of started to revert back to, well, no, we want, the game to be easier, different things done to make the game easier. And it just became a shit show from that point on. Now, with that being said, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. If you want more content, tomorrow's video will be covering how we can fix Overwatch going forward. We're not necessarily going to focus on balance. That will be for a separate video. But I will talk about how and what Overwatch can do to win back player goodwill. Because right now, they desperately need goodwill. So if you're interested in watching something like that, be sure to stick around. That's coming tomorrow. With that being said, I love you all. Thank you so much for the support. See you in the next one.